Three Tales from the Highway. A Trucker's Nightmare. Story 1. Desert Mirage. The heat shimmered off Highway 15 as I pushed through my second night crossing the Mojave. At 2:47 a.m., my headlights caught something wrong. A silver Dodge Charger sat sideways across both lanes, hazards blinking weakly, driver's door hanging open like a broken jaw. I'd been hauling freight for nearly a decade, and you develop instincts out here on the long stretches of empty highway. Something about this scene made every alarm bell in my head start ringing. The way the car sat there, perfectly centered to block both lanes. The door open at that exact angle. It looked staged, like someone had positioned it deliberately. I slowed my rig to a crawl, scanning for other vehicles, for movement, for anything that might explain what I was seeing. Nothing. Just endless darkness stretching in every direction, and that car, sitting there like bait in a trap. The Mojave at night is a special kind of empty, the kind that makes you feel like you're the last person on Earth, or worse, like you're not alone at all. My CB radio crackled with static, and I tried raising anyone, on the channel. Dead air. Not unusual out here, but it didn't help the growing sense of unease settling in my gut. I should have just called 911 and kept driving. That's what the company policy said. That's what common sense said. But I'd been driving for 14 hours straight, and my judgment was impaired by exhaustion and the strange, dreamlike quality that overtakes you on these late-night desert runs. I grabbed my flashlight from the side compartment and stepped down from the cab, boots crunching on scattered glass. The temperature had dropped significantly since sunset, and the cold air hit me like a slap, helping clear my head a little. I approached the Charger cautiously, flashlight beams sweeping back and forth across the asphalt. The car's interior was pristine except for the blood. Not much, just spots on the steering wheel and a smear across the dashboard, like someone had tried to wipe it away, but gave up halfway through. The keys still dangled from the ignition, and the engine was cool to the touch when I carefully reached through the open door. This car had been here for a while. A woman's purse sat on the passenger seat, contents spilling out. Lipstick, a wallet, loose change. I didn't touch anything, but I could see the driver's license through the wallet's clear plastic window. A young woman, maybe 25, blonde hair, smiling at the camera. The registration in the glove box showed the car belonged to someone else entirely. A man named Robert Chen from Las Vegas. Then I noticed the trunk. It was shut, but something white poked from the seal where the lid met the body of the car. I walked around slowly, my flashlight beam trembling slightly despite my attempts to hold it steady. Zip ties. 4 of them, thick industrial ones, cinching the trunk closed from the inside. Someone had been locked in there and had tried to secure it from within, or someone had wanted it to look that way. My mouth went dry. I reached for my phone to call the police, and that's when I heard it. A sound like metal scraping against metal, coming from behind the vehicle. I spun around fast enough to make myself dizzy, my light catching movement in the drainage culvert 30 feet off the shoulder. A figure crouched there, unnaturally still, face hidden in shadow. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched, unable to move, unable to look away. Then it stood, slowly, revealing a woman in a stained dress that might have once been white. In the harsh beam of my flashlight, I could see dark streaks down the front of the fabric. "Please," she called out, voice raw and desperate. "He's still here." Every instinct I had screamed at me that something was catastrophically wrong. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Flat, emotionless, like she was reading from a script. And something about her posture, the way she didn't move any closer, didn't run toward help, didn't act like someone who'd just been rescued. Her eyes never left the darkness behind me, staring at something I couldn't see. I didn't turn around to look. I just turned and ran for my truck, my boots slapping against the pavement. Behind me, I heard the woman's voice again. But this time it was different. Angry, shouting something I couldn't make out. I climbed into my cab faster than I'd moved in years, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands shook as I ground the gears, getting the rig moving. As I pulled away, my headlights swept across the scene one last time. The woman was gone, vanished like she'd never been there. But now there were two figures standing by the Charger, just standing there, side by side, watching my truck pull away. They didn't wave, didn't move, just watched. I didn't stop driving until sunrise painted the sky pink and orange over Barstow. I pulled into a truck stop, my hands still trembling, and sat in the parking lot for an hour trying to convince myself to call the police. But what would I tell them? I saw an abandoned car and a woman who disappeared. They'd think I was crazy or on drugs or just another sleep-deprived trucker hallucinating from exhaustion. In the end, I never reported what I saw. Some things, I decided, you just survive and forget. But I changed my route after that. I don't drive through the Mojave at night anymore, no matter how much extra it costs in time and fuel. And sometimes, when I'm lying awake at 2:47 a.m., I wonder about that woman in the white dress, and who was in that trunk, and what would have happened if I'd turned around to see what she was staring at in the darkness behind me. Been driving for 9 hours straight when my GPS announced a truck stop in 5 miles. This was back when I was still new to the job, about 3 months in, and I was still making rookie mistakes. The first mistake was trusting the GPS blindly. Those things aren't always updated, especially for truck-specific stops. The second mistake was pulling in anyway, when I saw the place was clearly dead. The exit ramp was overgrown with weeds pushing through cracks in the concrete. The parking lot was cracked asphalt and scattered debris. Old tires, broken pallets, glass that crunched under my wheels. The building itself looked like something from a horror movie. A combination gas station and diner with boarded windows and a hanging sign that read, "Lose," with half the letters missing. The L hung at a crooked angle, squeaking as it swung in the wind. Every rational part of my brain said to keep driving. There was another truck stop marked on my GPS about 40 miles ahead. But I'd been driving since before dawn. My back ached, my eyes burned, and I desperately needed to stretch my legs and use a bathroom. The door to the building looked intact, and when I tried it, it opened. That should have been my third warning sign. Why would an abandoned building have an unlocked door? Inside, my phone's flashlight revealed a time capsule from maybe 20 years ago. Faded advertisements for Coca-Cola and Marlboro cigarettes covered the walls. Dust-covered shelves still held ancient bags of chips, their packaging designs from a decade past. A magazine rack near the front held water-damaged issues of trucking magazines from 2005. The register sat with its drawer hanging open and empty. And behind the counter, a calendar was frozen on July 2008. The place should have been completely silent, but it wasn't. I could hear something, a faint humming sound, like electricity running through wires. But that was impossible. The building was clearly abandoned, clearly without power. The sounds seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I moved deeper into the building, past aisles of abandoned merchandise, my footsteps echoing off the walls. The air smelled wrong, not just dusty and stale, but sweet and rotten at the same time, like fruit left to decay. My phone light flickered once, twice, and my heart rate jumped. I should have left then. I should have turned around and walked straight back to my truck. A noise from the back, like something heavy shifting, dragging across concrete. "Hello?" I called out, immediately regretting it. My voice echoed through the empty building, and in the silence that followed, I heard my own breathing, rapid and shallow. Silence answered for several long seconds. Then, slowly, I heard a rhythmic creaking sound, something swinging back and forth, like a pendulum or a rope with weight on it. The sound came from what I guessed was the manager's office, based on the faded sign on a door near the back. I found it in what used to be the manager's office. A metal hook hanging from the ceiling, swaying gently despite no breeze, despite no air movement at all. The hook was old, rusted, the kind you might use to hang deer carcasses or heavy equipment. Below it, fresh scratches in the concrete floor formed a semicircle pattern, as if something had been dragged in an arc beneath the swinging hook. The scratches were bright and new, cutting through years of accumulated dust. My phone light caught something else. Muddy footprints, several sets, leading from the office to various parts of the building. They weren't old prints. The mud was still slightly damp, glistening in my phone's light. I backed out of the office carefully, my heart pounding so hard I could hear blood rushing in my ears. I needed to get out of this building, get back to my truck, and get far away from this place. I moved back through the store quickly, no longer caring about the noise I made, just wanting to be gone. I returned to my truck and reached for the door handle, then froze. Something that stopped my blood cold. Muddy footprints leading from the building to my truck, circling it completely, then disappearing underneath the trailer. Someone had walked around my entire rig while I was inside. Someone had inspected it, studied it, and then crawled underneath. My hands shook as I climbed into the cab and locked every door. I started the engine and pulled out of that parking lot, with my foot pressed hard on the accelerator, gears grinding as I shifted too fast. I drove 2 miles down the highway before my breathing returned to normal, before I could think clearly enough to make a decision. I pulled over at a well-lit rest stop and called 911. When the state trooper arrived 20 minutes later, I explained everything. The abandoned building, the swinging hook, the footprints. He checked my trailer with his flashlight while I stood nearby, watching. When he opened the trailer doors, his flashlight beam revealed a sleeping bag spread out between my cargo pallets, food wrappers scattered around it, empty water bottles, and most disturbing of all, a collection of driver's licenses rubber banded together. At least 15 of them, maybe 20. The trooper went quiet as he examined the licenses, his face grim. He called for backup and spent the next hour photographing everything, bagging evidence, asking me questions I couldn't answer. None of the licenses matched any active missing persons cases in the immediate database, he told me. But he'd run them through the national system. "How long you think they were back there?" I asked, my voice barely steady. The trooper studied the setup, the sleeping bag, the food wrappers, the systematic arrangement of supplies, then looked at me grimly. Based on this, could have been weeks. You gave someone a ride across 3 state lines without knowing it. The thought still keeps me up at night. Who were they? What were they planning? Were they just a desperate, homeless person looking for free transportation, or something much worse? And those licenses, were they trophies? Identities they'd stolen? Evidence of crimes I couldn't begin to imagine? The scariest part is that I'll never know. The police never contacted me again after that initial report. I don't know if they caught whoever was living in my trailer, or if that person is still out there, hitching rides with unsuspecting truckers, collecting licenses, waiting for the right moment to do whatever it is they plan to do. I check my trailer obsessively now, before and after every stop. I walk around it with a flashlight, looking for signs that someone's tampered with the doors or crawled underneath. My company thinks I'm paranoid, but they didn't find a stranger's nest in their cargo hold. They didn't see that collection of driver's licenses, all those faces smiling at the camera, all those people going about their lives with no idea their identity was sitting in the back of my truck. Story 3. The Crying Game. I'd been running routes through Montana for 15 years, and I knew better than to push past exhaustion. The rules were clear. Take your breaks, get your sleep, don't push beyond what's safe. But the dispatcher promised a bonus for early delivery. Double my usual rate if I could get the load to Billings by morning. And I needed that money. My daughter's college tuition was due, my truck needed new tires, and I'd been running behind on bills for 3 months straight. So I pushed. Hour after hour, I fought through the fatigue, downing coffee and energy drinks, blasting the radio, anything to keep my eyes open and my mind alert. By hour 19, I was running on fumes. The highway stretched empty and black through pine forests, and my eyes burned every time I blinked. Twice I caught myself drifting into the other lane, jerking the wheel back at the last second. Then I saw the stuffed animal, a pink elephant, sitting upright in the middle of my lane. I swerved hard, my trailer fishtailing slightly as I overcorrected. My heart hammered as I straightened out and checked my mirrors. In my rear view, the toy sat there in the road, perfectly positioned, perfectly upright, not lying on its side like something that had fallen off a truck, not tumbled or wind-blown, sitting up like someone had carefully placed it there. I tried to rationalize it, fell off someone's truck, kids threw it from a passing car, but we were in the middle of nowhere. I hadn't seen another vehicle in over an hour. And that elephant was sitting upright, deliberately placed, positioned right where a driver would see it, where it would make them slow down or stop. 2 miles later, I saw the bicycle. A child's bicycle lying on its side in the road, training wheels still attached, one wheel slowly spinning in my headlights. I slowed, but didn't stop, maneuvering around it carefully. In my mirrors, I watched it recede into darkness. 4 miles after that, a small shoe, just one, sitting in the middle of the right lane. Then another shoe a 1/4 mile later, this one in the left lane. Then a small jacket spread out like someone had laid it there carefully. Then more toys, a doll, a toy truck, a backpack. My hands tightened on the wheel until my knuckles turned white. This was a trail. Someone was building a trail, and I was following it. Each item was placed deliberately, spaced out to draw attention, to create a narrative. A child in trouble. A child who lost things while running, while being chased, while escaping something. When the crying started, I nearly crashed. A child's voice sobbing desperately, coming from the trees on my right. It wasn't distant or muffled. It was close, immediate, the sound of a terrified child in genuine distress. Then another voice, younger, calling, "Mommy, Mommy, please." The voices were so clear, so real, so full of terror that my foot moved to the brake before my rational mind could stop it. Stop the truck. Every instinct told me not to. But the voices were so real, so terrified. What if there really was a child out there? What if I drove past and later found out a kid had died because I didn't stop? How would I live with that? I grabbed my tire iron from under the seat, I wasn't completely stupid, and stepped down from the cab. The crying continued, always just beyond my flashlight's range, leading deeper into the trees. It moved as I moved, staying just far enough ahead that I couldn't quite see the source. "Hey," I called out. "I'm here to help. Where are you?" The crying got more desperate, more urgent. "Help me. Please help me." It was coming from about 30 feet into the forest now, just beyond where my flashlight could penetrate the thick pine trees. I took 3 steps toward it, branches crunching under my boots. And that's when my light caught something else. A wire, stretched between 2 trees at ankle height, right where I would have walked if I'd taken one more step. It was thin, almost invisible, positioned perfectly to trip someone walking through the darkness. My blood went cold. I swung my flashlight in a wide arc, and that's when I saw them. Eyes reflecting back, multiple pairs, surrounding my position in a rough semicircle. They were watching from the darkness, hidden behind trees, waiting. I ran for the truck without looking back, my boots slipping on pine needles and loose rocks. Behind me, I heard sounds, branches breaking, footsteps, the crying suddenly stopping and being replaced by voices, adult voices, saying something I couldn't make out. I fired up my truck's engine, ground it into gear, and floored the accelerator. Something hit my rear doors with a metallic bang that echoed through the cab. Then another impact, and another. I heard voices now, adult voices, shouting in anger, cursing. In my mirror, I saw them. 4 or 5 figures, stepping out onto the road from the trees, watching my taillights disappear. One of them threw something else, a rock maybe, that cracked against my trailer. I drove straight through to Billings without stopping, my hands locked on the wheel, my eyes checking the mirrors every few seconds, expecting to see headlights following me. When I finally pulled into the depot as the sun rose, I sat in my cab for 10 minutes, trying to calm my breathing, trying to process what had happened. When I checked my trailer before unloading, I found deep scratches around the door handles and lock, as if someone had tried very hard to get inside while I was driving. The scratches were fresh, cutting through the paint down to bare metal. They hadn't been there when I'd loaded in Seattle. The dispatcher came out to congratulate me on the early delivery and stopped short when he saw my face. "You look like hell, man. What happened out there?" I just shook my head. What could I tell him? That I'd been ambushed by people in the woods using fake child screams to lure drivers into a trap? That they'd tried to break into my trailer while I was driving 70 miles per hour down a Montana highway? He'd think I'd lost my mind from sleep deprivation. Some things you don't talk about, because talking about them means admitting they're real. And once you do that, you'll never feel safe on a dark road again. I still drive through Montana, but never at night. And I never, ever stop for anything in the middle of nowhere. No matter what I see, no matter what I hear. Because now I know, not all the monsters on the highway are human, but some of the worst ones are.